Welcome. I'm glad you've joined me today as we endeavor into 2022. This year, we're going to focus on week one. You will be sewing with me, and that will be a sewing project of sorts that I have. So if you joined me last week, you got to experience me roughly, crazily creating a 1920s dress and underdress. Week two is going to focus on cooking in the kitchen. So today we are going to make my Irish stew recipe. Week three will focus on quilting, making quilt squares. And week four will focus on different fun costuming ideas, simple ways to utilize what you already have in your closet and making something that might go with those as well, something simple. And then if there's a fifth week in the month, that's going to be kind of a maybe crafting nonsense type of thing. So there's going to be lots of fun things for that. So thank you for joining me, and let's get cooking.
Okay, so we're going to get started here with the beef stew seasoning mix. First, I'm adding a cup of all-purpose flour. I'm adding 2 teaspoons dried oregano. This is dried basil, and I'm using 1 tablespoon of that. Now you of course can use fresh if you have them. I don't, and I'm not a green thumb, so I don't even try to grow them. Here I have rosemary. I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of rosemary. It looks like I'm getting low, but psych, I'm not. I have another bottle. So this is a great time that I have a tendency to downsize and consolidate as much as possible. And then I recycle that other one, or I might use it for a different spice, remove the label. And here's parsley. I'm going to put in 1 tablespoon of dried parsley here. And here I'm putting in Himalayan salt. It asks for a tablespoon. My recipe is 1 tablespoon of salt. And I really love this one. It's just the flavor that the Himalayan salt adds is really nice. And here's some black pepper, 2 tablespoons of that. How often do you put 2 tablespoons of black pepper in a recipe? Well, you're going to want it because it just, I don't know, it's just really... I don't know what it does exactly other than my beef stew tastes amazing and my family can't put it down. So, and this recipe I got from somewhere online and it works really good. Here we go. We've got some paprika. For some reason I have a ton of paprika in my house. So here I think I'm already deciding which bottle do I keep. So I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of paprika into this mix here. It may seem like a lot, but I'm telling you, the flavors are absolutely perfect. And you most likely have all of this stuff in your cupboard. You just don't know how to use it, like I didn't for a long time. And now I find that you don't have to go buy a taco seasoning packet. Okay, cayenne pepper, 1/2 teaspoon. You don't have to buy a beef stew packet. You can create your own. It looks like I need some celery seed, and I happen to have 2. Look at that. How exciting is that? I need a tablespoon of that. I'm putting this one in a glass jar. I love that glass jar. I don't remember when I got that, but anyway, so yeah, a tablespoon of celery seed. And our last ingredient, onion powder, 2 tablespoons. There it is. You're going to mix that up. And then I will put that together in a baggie. But I mix that all up. And you're going to add 2 to 3 tablespoons. You could add it to your meat. I'm putting it through a mill here because, like a sifter. The reason why is sometimes, depending on how old those spices are, I don't throw them out. I'm one of those. but they can, if they get enough moisture in it, they'll clump up. So I'm just trying to get it as smooth as possible because I want to keep using it. And it mixes it in the process, which is really nice. So that's all I'm doing here is using a sifter, a flour sifter. And then I realized, oh, if you look there on the side there, my little thing wasn't connected on both sides. I'm like, why isn't this working? So there we go. That's all I'm doing. But yeah, again, you're going to use this. You can season it, the meat, like run the meat in it or whatever, or you can just put it in the crock pot like what I do basically. But it's 2 to 3 tablespoons, and then I put it in a Ziploc baggie right on the back, right? Stew seasoning, 2 to 3 tablespoons. That's what I write. So there we go. That's how easy that is. All right. Now we're going to get into putting this stew together. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to take our potatoes out, and this recipe I use asks for 6 large potatoes, and this bag, I showed you the bag at the beginning, these potatoes were a whole lot smaller than I'm used to working with, and honestly we don't, this is the main way we eat potatoes in my home. We don't eat a lot of mashed potatoes. A lot of the foods I create now are stews or soups, things that are easy to reheat, that reheat lovely. And so like a roast, things like that. Whereas for some reason we just don't, eat mashed potatoes anymore like when my kids were younger. So my kids are adults. I have 2 adult children who live in my home, and we are all on different eating schedules, and so it's nice to have this around so that when they're hungry, they can eat it. But yeah, these were a lot smaller than I'm used to. So, and it's just kind of fun to figure out, what was the easiest way, the fastest way, and without cutting my fingers off, because I am not a chef. I am pretty much a self-taught cook, using recipes and a few people who have shown me a few things here and there. But this is the exciting part, just cutting potatoes. And here we are with our carrots. This recipe calls for 5 large carrots, and my goal with cutting is that they get into kind of bite size, nothing too crazy. And of course I have baby carrots. I seem to always have baby carrots, and I am trying to pare down like what's in my fridge. And some of these carrots, you'll notice the different textures. Some are drier than others. I think there's some broccoli hanging out on one there in the front. Let's just chop them up, stick them in. And then this recipe calls for 4 large onions, and you can cut it however you want. I personally do not like to eat a big chunk of onion. A trick I've heard, I have not utilized myself, because why would I? I like to torture myself. I'm crying profusely in this video because the onions. If I had refrigerated them prior, my understanding is if you refrigerate them prior, that they will, whatever they're sending out when you're cutting them does not affect you. But I was crying. At some point here I had to take a break and go wipe my eyes, and my makeup was just running. It was horrible. So I just kind of cut these down so that they're a little bit smaller, and then I pull out my handy dandy slicer, and I use that because, again, we don't like big chunks. So here we go. There's my slicer. I think this one I picked up at Kohl's when I had some Kohl's cash, and I'm like, hurry, get done, get through there. I'm crying like there's no tomorrow. It's like I'm reliving that. All right, now here's the beef, and it is about 1.5 pounds is what they recommend. I'm putting 3 pounds in here, about 3 pounds. Oh, I love the styrofoam, but I'm sticking it in frozen. And so couple things. Make sure you remove all of that plastic and styrofoam and whatever might be stuck to it. And you can run it under some warm water and it will usually release it. I'm just sticking it on the top. Nothing fancy. And then I am taking 1 cup of water. Usually I use 1 cup of water. I would have used 2 cups of water, but I had this beef broth left over from another recipe and I wanted to use it up. So even though I'm only showing you here that I'm putting 1 cup in, I actually put more in because I realized I had doubled this recipe. And there's other options too, right? You can do the beef bouillon, but if you don't have beef bouillon cubes, if you don't have beef broth, just use water. It's that simple. And here I'm adding the seasoning to the stew. At some point I decided I was going to pack it onto the meat. It doesn't really matter because it's just melting in there. And there's one I'm like, oh, I'm going to get all creative. I'm going to stick it in here. Mix it up. Woohoo! Miss Fancy Pants. So because I'm doing this all in a crock pot, I just stick it on low and let it do its thing. And here it is.
What do you got? Oh, is that the one I made today? And how is it? Good, I'm glad. Love you.